long ago, I told you the first great story, which is how the earth came to be. And you have also heard the story of the coming of life, which is about how animals and plants spread across our world. Oh, I also told you the story of the coming of humans, which is about the coming of human beings to the earth. The story I want to tell you today is about a time after human beings were living on the earth. We do not know exactly when this story took place, but we do know that it was a long, long time ago. It really doesn't matter exactly when our story took place anyway. What is important is that you know that this is a true story. When men, women, and children first lived on the earth, they needed food to eat. Because this was a long, long, long time ago, there were no supermarkets. The earth was ready for human beings, and they found many good foods to eat. The first people also told each other about what they had found that was good to eat. Perhaps they used gestures to tell each other, or perhaps they used words and gestures. Like if I were to rub my stomach and say that, this is good food. Smiling, and I could say that this is good. This worked out just fine for most of the time, but one day, somebody had a problem. This person found something good to eat. Perhaps it was fish in a pond, and the person that they wanted to tell about it wasn't anywhere nearby. The person thought, how can I tell what I have found? This was quite a problem, but then either this person or somebody else solved the problem. Someone, we don't know who or exactly when, decided to make a picture. The picture said what a person might otherwise have said in words to another person nearby. This idea spread, and many people began to leave messages by drawing pictures. For a long time, this was the only way that people could write. Hunters who wanted someone else to know that a certain kind of buffalo could be caught nearby would leave a picture of the animal in a cave or carved into a boulder where other hunters would see it. If the hunters had seen 10 buffalo, they would make 10 strokes under the picture to show that the buffalo was there, and perhaps that's how many buffalo they saw. Some of the pictures that these people made so long ago can still be seen where they have waited and hidden in dark caves for a long, long time. Many, many years later, a group of people called the Sumerians began to use very simple pictures as a form of writing. We call the signs that they made in wet clay pictographs. See if you can tell what each of these pictographs meant for the people of Sumer. Is this one a bird? Or an ox? Fish? Maybe a piece of grain? Well, time went on, and at a certain time in history, about 5,000 years ago, the great civilization of Egypt flourished in northern Africa on the banks of the Nile River. These people made picture messages, some of which they carved on their stone buildings and statues. They also painted their messages into a sort of paper that they made from papyrus reeds, which grew in the Nile. Later, the Egyptians used a pen to write their picture messages. They often wrote about their kings and queens, and it is possible to see these beautiful messages that they left for you if you went to visit Egypt today. At first, the Egyptians used pictographs. A simple picture of an eagle meant eagle. Later, the Egyptians used pictures for ideas. An eagle with a man's face no longer meant eagle. It became the symbol for soul. Later still, animal pictures were used by the Egyptians to represent sounds, and the eagle became the symbol for the letter A. Gradually, this sound picture was written in a more and more simple way until it looked like this. The Egyptian priests, who were for a long time the only people who could write in Egypt, often mixed pictographs, ideographs, sound pictures, and sound symbols together. The system of writing, as you can imagine, could get quite confusing. Just the same, this was the most advanced form of writing in the world for a long time. Then, between 3,000 and 4,000 years ago, another group of people called the Phoenicians had an important idea. The Phoenicians lived around the Mediterranean Sea, north of Africa. They sailed islands around the Mediterranean and sold many things to other people. They sold ivory, spices, incense, slaves, silver, and glass, and they had one other product that no one else in the world had. Somehow, they had discovered a certain shellfish which contained a tiny particle of color, which they found could be used to dye clothes. The shellfish were gathered by the millions and crushed so that the Phoenicians could produce the dye that came to be called Tyrian purple. This dye was hard to get, and it was very expensive. The Phoenicians probably kept the secret of where the dye came from and how to make it themselves. It was their exclusive product. Only kings were able to afford this dye for their clothing. That is why, to this day, purple is still considered the color of royalty. But as important as Tyrian purple dye was to the Phoenicians, this was not their most important idea. The Phoenicians are part of this story for another reason. As they traded with different groups around the Mediterranean, the Phoenicians found that they needed a simple way to keep records and a way that someone could learn quite quickly. They devised a system of symbols for the sounds of their language. This was the first alphabet. The Phoenicians had discovered what you found out when you learned the sandpaper letters. This mark makes this sound. The Phoenician alphabet was not the same as our own, but perhaps you can see some letters that we still use today are actually gifts to us from the Phoenicians. It was not long before the other groups learned of this wonderful new idea of the Phoenicians. The Greeks took the Phoenician alphabet, made some changes and additions, and created their own alphabet. Then the Romans made some more changes. It was the Romans who named their system the alphabet, a word that came from the names of the first and second letters of the Greek alphabet. The Roman alphabet is almost the same as our own. Other people made small changes, and our own alphabet was the result. So now, when we write or read, we use these special marks that stand for sounds. We don't have to draw pictures of objects or ideas. When you read, you recognize each letter and know the sound that it makes. Because the Phoenicians invented the sound alphabet, I was able to read our book Wish to you yesterday. Barbara O'Connor wrote that down, and I was able to read her words to you. Whenever you read a story or write a message, remember the Phoenicians, and sometimes say thank you to them. They have given us a wonderful gift, which we call our alphabet.